And we are starting now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's stream. I was a bit busy today, so unfortunately I couldn't record my video. But I did decide that today we could have a total conversation because I think we didn't answer a lot of questions in a previous stream. As always, I would like to start by saying a huge thanks to the people that are here behind the scenes but are doing an incredible job and dedicating a lot of their time to make sure that this channel stays what it is, that it keeps very nice, cozy, and Russian troll free. Thank you so much to the moderating team, and I will ask everyone that is watching me right now to please join and give a hand to our moderating team. Thank you so much, guys, from the depth of my heart. You are the best, and thank you so much for being so long and so dedicated on this channel. It matters a lot to me, and it matters a lot to Ukraine, I hope. I mean, it definitely matters a lot because this channel is doing things. This community freaking rocks. Look at that. It done. Oh, wait, that's an old one. I need to update. If I refresh the page, ta-da! We done. Congratulations, everyone who participated in the campaign. I want to say huge thanks for everyone, every single person of 549, and I'm pretty sure and counting, that participated in this fundraiser. And I would like to extend my gratitude for still keeping up with Ukraine despite everything. With that said, I hope we will do even more. And this is just part of our share. But I would like to address one person specifically, Thomas. So Thomas wrote that he lives in poverty, so he showed up to drop the like and a few comments for ratings. He's saying at least it's something. Thomas, if you didn't know my story, I come from an obscene poverty, right? My childhood is me digging through the garbage dumps. That's the level. Like, we're borderline hunting rats for food. That's my childhood. We didn't do it, but it was borderline there. And so you should never, your financial status should never define who you are. Everyone has good times, bad times. Some people have a father that gave him a small loan of $1 million. Other people don't have that. Like, I didn't have that. So what I would want to say to you is that our financial status does not define the kindness of our hearts. And the fact that you are here now tells me more about what kind of person you are, rather than the fact that you have some issues with your finances at this moment of your life. Do not get discouraged, my friend. If you need any help, please obviously reach out. We're not really a charity, but at least we can help out with anything. But whatever it is, guys, I want to thank this community because specifically in this community, I met people that the most kindest and the most dedicated and honest people I've ever met in my life, period. Absolutely, hands down. I was very jaded about the sense of humanity. You know, I'm a capitalist, so I looked at everything like, oh, okay, people are just want to do this and that. And this community has proven me time and time again that there is so much good still in people that care, and there's so many people that care and ready to fight for what is right. So thank you so much for being in this community. You're not defined by what you wear, where you are, the bank account, or whatever. It's about who we are and what we do and in which community we are participating in. And you are part of this community, Thomas, and everyone else who feels the same fate as Thomas as well. You're always welcome, and we're doing great job. And even if it's not financial, as I said, I know what it's like to be hungry, and I know what it's like to not have any finances whatsoever. And we are doing great job even by sending out the message in support for Ukraine that needs our support the most, because Ukraine matters, obviously. with that beginning, I hope we can really start going into something. And I would like to start by talking about Putin. Now, I don't like talking about Putin, mostly because he is like the epitome of whenever like his mouth moves, like he lies. He lies. You know, there's some people that you say like this guy lies as breathes. That's literally what he does, because not a single word basically coming out of his mouth, it was pretty much truth. And I specifically wanted to talk about this stream's discussion that Putin and his facade for his stability, his bravado, is just absolutely falling apart. Now, if you didn't know, recently there was this St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. And already here we see some of that facade crumbling. Because while this event was indeed in St. Petersburg, the international part there was mostly represented by members of the Taliban that participated, and some other very obscure nations, very, very few of them as well. So that kind of tells it all. You know, Russia is a pretend state. They've been a pretend democracy. They had pretend market economy. Even now, like I'm pretty sure, despite everything, there is about 50% of this community that thinks that ruble and how strong or weak ruble is not defined by Russia. Completely obscure to the fact that at the start of the full-scale invasion, Russia basically started driving ruble hand-driven mode. It's not a freely convertible currency. So it has the rate that is set basically by the Russian government. Now, you can argue that maybe they are bouncing off depending on some of the market conditions, but it's not necessarily the case. Because right now, for example, that we're talking about this St. Petersburg in the Economic Forum, they were specifically saying that there is no logical explanation, no market explanation, let me correct that, of why the ruble needs to be so strong. Because it's bad for everyone, except the weapons. Like, the weapons manufacturers are still benefiting from there. It is incredible to see that we still have so many delusions, despite, I think, learning about what and who Russia is very intimately over the last years. But coming back to Putin's topic, what he was stating, besides all of the bullshit that he spewed, otherwise it was obviously a lengthy speech, he was talking and saying that I have said many times that I consider the Russian and Ukrainian people to be one people. In this sense, all of Ukraine is ours. Putin told forum guests, we have our old rule. Wherever a Russian soldier sets our foot, this is ours. So let's break this apart. He said that the Russians and Ukrainians are one people. Well, he said it before. Now, the people that would like to deceive you, they would say, it's like, oh, so Putin is saying that Ukrainians and Russians are on the same level, so he would treat Ukrainians nicely. No, that's not what he's saying. He's saying that Ukrainians are part of Russians. More specifically, there even is a term for Ukraine. They're called the Little Russians. If you don't know, let me just do it right in before your eyes. There we go, Russian Wikipedia. This is called Malorosse. Now, you don't read Cyrillic. That's fair. So let's just translate this page to English. Oh, the Wikipedia page about Ukrainians in Russian is literally titled Little Russians. So, no, Putin does not consider Ukrainians and Russians to be, well, I mean, he considers this technically to be the same people, except they are like little people, you know, the people that they only are there to do your bidding. That's what Putin thinks. Then he talks about all of Ukraine is ours. Well, I mean, do I need to explain anything? Here he says nothing new. And this statement shouldn't be new for anyone. But I'm just ecstatic here by just how much in the face of all of these peaceniks and negotiatniks this is thrown. Remember, like, how many people were trying to gaslight every single one of you here that if only Ukraine gives some of that territory to Russia, maybe they will be some kind of peace. Like, have you heard that before? I'm pretty sure you heard that before. And I'm pretty sure some of you even started doubting it, saying it's like, yeah, Ukraine is really having it tough and so on. Maybe they should consider some kind of a ceasefire or whatever. If only just agree to give up some of that territory. No. What Putin says here is that's ours. Now, we cannot take it right now because, well, Ukraine has been kicking our butt forevermore. For example, like, have you considered, if you're considering if this big victory for Russia, if someone says like, yeah, but Russia is advancing. Well, they're advancing so fast and so far that right now at the mid of 2025, they control significantly less of Ukraine than they controlled in 2022. How do you explain that? And I'm talking like almost two times more of Ukrainian land Russia was controlling at the start of the 2022. Russia was kicked out of all of the major settlements. The only big thing, the only regional center that Russia was captured was Kherson. And Russia got absolutely kicked out of there by the boots of Ukrainians. And this brings us to the third point, whereas he says, where a Russian soldier's foot lands, that's ours. Well, unless that foot is blown off by an FPV drone, I guess. Because continuing the point about Kherson, Russians landed in Kherson. They've set their foot all right, except a lot of these feet stayed right there in Kherson and are now not going anywhere anymore. Russia is creeping, advancing. This is understandable, and I explain on this channel extensively, and you know why it is. Like, I'm preaching to acquire here a little bit, which is that Ukraine just has less resources. Ukrainian allies are not providing enough help. There is always some kind of a weird move to find some kind of a negotiated path, some kind of a ceasefire, instead of clearly defining that Ukraine just needs to win. There is still a lot of red lines that we're drawing ourselves. These red lines, like if we send tanks to Ukraine, Russia is going to nuke us. Well, tanks are in Ukraine. Russia is not nuking us. If we allow Ukraine to strike Russia in depth with our weapons, they will nuke us. Well, they haven't really nuked us. If we send Taurus missiles, Russia... yeah, we don't talk about that, do we? Yeah? So the point that I'm making is that we're still fighting with ourselves in our heads, trying to figure out how can we help Ukraine on the cheap one, instead of doing what is right, which is we should have gone in there. We should have closed the skies over civilian objects, 1. Close the skies over nuclear objects, 2, just for our own fucking safety. How about that? And number 3, we should have provided forces that, for example, would take control on the periphery of Transnistria, or just generally the eastern border of Ukraine, western border of Ukraine, so the Ukrainians can focus to fighting Russians. All those things are non-confrontational. Russia is not gonna nuke you if you shut down its fucking drones and missiles. But we're fighting our own demons and just cannot really get there. And that is fair. But the point that I'm making here is very, very clear. That Putin is making a claim here, a very strong claim. Now, and this is where, like, a lot of people, I feel, have really have not really seen the main part of what Putin has said. I was hoping a lot of people will cover it. But what he's stating basically here is that any kind of rule of law, any kind of international borders does not matter for Russia. Because think about what he says. He says, wherever the Russian foot lands, that's ours. He doesn't say it's like, oh, until the international borders and so on. Right now it's Ukraine. But he can easily just say it's like, well, now it's the Finland. Notoriously good it went last time for Russians. But let's say like it's Baltics. If the Russian foot lands in Baltics, it's theirs. What about if it's Sweden? Somewhere in Sweden, the Russian foot lands. Now it's theirs? Who knows? This is what I'm saying. Russia and Putin here, he basically declared that aggressive expansion, imperial expansions of Russia is justified. And the only way that these feet do not land on any of our soils if Russia has no feet. So that's the proper way to go. And I'm hoping we will be moving towards it. Like, today was a lot of loud statements about how European Union is investing into its defense, and that's props to them. We see also additional investments in Ukraine, which is great. But more importantly, we see that Ukrainians are getting a lot more help from the Europeans. We've calculated that it would need about 27 billion of euro that Europe would need to contribute in total additionally. And it seems that by the end of 2025, we are on the pathway to doing so. So I think Europe is generally stepping up to substitute US in the supplied aid. It's a bit of a pity that we cannot just do like a simple thing that, for example, President Zelensky is stating, just declare that 0.25% of Europe's budget will just go to support Ukraine. And that's it, just a flat rate. Obviously, it's not really flying, unfortunately, with a lot of countries, because, as I said, we still want to kind of resolve this one on the cheap. We see that the targets to increase our own defense is now being pushed from 2028, 2030, there was before, now they're being pushed to 2035. It's a bit of it's a shame that we are living in such a dangerous moments over here. And yet, we are not standing up to that. Yeah. Let's just move on, because I get very, very frustrated about us just not doing the simplest things possible. So I'm just a bit boiling on the inside. The best part is that at least this community is doing what it takes. I already mentioned this, so good stuff. But whenever I look at the deep state map and I look at the green territory that Russia controlled, and then it got kicked in, what exactly did you achieve, Putin? Now, you are capturing some no-name villages. Yeah, for sure. Every day we read about Putin capturing some no-name village. I'm sorry for all Ukrainians. I know for you it's a pain every day. I understand that. But to be fair, looking from top down, they are barely crawling. And yet, over 1 million Russians are dead. And Magyar right now stating is like, well, we just need to keep killing them until they're gone. So let's just focus everything that we have to destroy every single piece of Russians that are present on this ground. So to say, let's remove those legs. And I cannot agree even more. So let's continue doing this. But obviously, I want to get into the questions because I think that's the best part. So let's get into questions. Also, my apartment here is hot as hell. It's like devil's asshole. It's crazy. All right, let's get questions. Yeah, you can ask questions in just a ribbon. It says ask questions here. Just write it there and I will answer. And we'll see how much we can answer today. And yeah. Dark Hallway Productions. Do you think China and Russia might give Iran... So also, Also, people have been bothered that I say Iran. Okay, so guys, all the linguists, like, fuck off, first and foremost. Like, I'm saying things like it's normal to say. I know, for example, that the Kharkiv that I say, or Kherson, is not Kharkiv and Kherson. It's Kharkiv, Kherson. Ale, but it doesn't matter because I'm saying it like the way that we understand. So if it's Iran, it's just for the normal people. I know it's Iran, but we don't call Japan Nippon. We don't call Georgia Sakartvelo, do we? We don't call Finland Suomi. So fuck off, the linguists. Anyway, do you think China and Russia might give Iran weapons and build up their economy after this? So with Iran, I believe that the biggest lesson they will get out of this is that putting your facilities deep in the ground works. Like that, I believe, like, well, I think they truly understand that from now on, they will most definitely need some nukes. Like for sure. If they don't want to get nuked, they want to get bombed again, they definitely need nukes. And they also said, like, well, it seems this digging into mountains in depth really works because it required like a lot of effort. There was only very handful of the damages that were done to that facility that we can see of, so we cannot really appreciate how much damage was dealt. And that is a massive win. So if you make that facility for nuclear even deeper into the ground, if you also try to diversify it a little bit, then it's going to be really big problems for US to do anything about this, and for Israel as well. So I think they will definitely try to get the nukes now as fast as they can without maybe announcing it publicly, because that's what the North Korea did, and I think that's the lesson that Iran is learning also very fast. Unless there are regime change, but that doesn't seem so. It seems that people like kind of like, I mean, like, we don't want the mullahs, yeah, but Israel is like not our friend at all. And like, if we say that we're against mullahs, then we kind of gonna say that we are against that we are for Israel, and then that is super unpopular in Iran, and you're like, okay. So now it's like it's a weird rally around the flag effect that all of that Israel's and Americans' operations did. So it's a weird situation again. But I'm not an expert on the Middle East, so I'm kind of just mostly just giving analysis of the things that I can understand. BB's war, yeah, for sure. Definitely BB's war. Never mind me, I just injected a whole weed into my arteries. Can you explain to everyone how high losses tactics works and how it fits into the trading land for time? Okay, I explain how high attrition war losses works. Okay, ready? Okay, prepare to take notes, guys. I'll make it red so you count it as red. So Russian army is big, so there's a lot of manpower. These are people. That's their heads. It's like arms and it's legs. There we go. That's the Russian military. Okay, this guy is one leg. Okay, that's the Russian military. Now, Russian military sustains attrition on the battlefield, so they get blown up. It's an explosion, and this is Russian. He's now dead. So when Russians get blown up, new Russians come in. So Russia gets an income of about 30, let's say 30,000. It's like 30 to 35,000 new Russians. So every month there is like 30,000 new Russians coming in. So if Ukraine focuses on destroying the Russian living force, and Magyar says like, let's get to like something like 35,000 minus, then you will notice that after all of this, then Russia per month will get minus 5,000 troops. There we go. I just explained to you how the war for fighting against the manpower works. You're welcome. My communist colleagues claim to this very day that communism is just the best. Any nice words about Mother Russia from your personal and your family's past? Yeah, fuck communism. Like I'm from the Baltics. Really, fuck communism. Fuck communism. Fuck communism. Fuck communist. Fuck communism. And fuck all of their communist ideas. Fuck communism. I hope I said it clear enough. Like. Hello, hello. We hear the craziness of USA bombing Iran, and I wasn't even successful. Uh, I don't know. Wasn't successful. Like I wouldn't like the people that say it wasn't successful are Iranians, the same people that are just posted the AI images of some kind of a plane that's the size of like 2 football fields. So let's not just believe what Iranians say. We definitely saw the entryways for the U.S. bombs. I think it was like 6 bombs, and they came in pretty clutch. Like it was like very tight line where these bombs came in. So if you consider that it was like one bomb, one after another, the fact of the matter is we don't know what is the damage that these depth bombs really made. So I would definitely dispute that there was no damage. Can you put your sense on the subject? I'm at even more loss for words, events of a late. Love to the mods. No, Middle East, not my point. I would like to focus on Ukraine. Like, I seriously, not a Middle East specialist. I can talk about certain things that just, like make sense, but yeah, like don't get me to analyze what it means for the political environment of the region. Like that shit is wild. I have enough to deal with one dictator. Let's focus on that one. Okay. On a scale of 9 to 10, how much does Putin taste like pee? Wow, incredible, highly intellectual questions. Good question. Try it and tell me. Pat O'Brien, why do Russian folks not rise up and oppose? Because Russians are not like they're not folk, they're not nation, they're population. That's the simple expression. Like you can talk about in different terms. Like I've heard talk about it like the genes or the brainwashing, whatever theory you mostly support. Right now, Putin has pretty hefty support in Russia. And by support, I'm saying non-opposal. So in Russia, there's about 30% that is like totally fascist, like people that just want to destroy Ukraine, pillage the villages, rape women, and so on. That's about 30%. Like, then there is another like 30 to 40% people that just don't care. Like they can do whatever it takes, and it's a majority. So that leaves maybe about 25 to 30% Russians that are either somewhat against the war, and then maybe there is like another 10% that is totally against the war. The main thing that you need to understand, like what needs to be the indicator for you of what Russians are and what they are doing or what they're willing to do, is look at the size of the Russia, what was it called, the Russia Freedom Legion. I think it was that what was called. Like, have you heard about those guys? Like, they still exist, but like, those guys, basically, almost non-existent. Why? Well, because Russians don't sign up, and even if you disregard, okay, Freedom of Russia Legion, yeah, Freedom of Russia Legion. There was another one, the RDK, something like more Nazi vibe, like a nationalist Nazi vibe, like their pan-Slavianism, dog shit. Those guys also like pretty few of them. Like maybe you get like 1,000 or something compared to all of the Russians. Again, 150 million people, supposedly, country. And barely 1,000 of them join up to fight against Putin's regime for Ukraine. But more importantly, what is more telling is that Russians do not support the Russian Volunteer Corps. Thank you, Russian Volunteer Corps. Yes. So they don't support the Russian Volunteer Corps. Like the Russians that are actually actively fighting against Putin, they could have like just, you know, fundraised it, and it could be like, these are their actual guys. Like even if you're like 10% opposition of Russia, is like, yeah, we need to support these guys, all Russians that are outside Russia. It is our absolute mandatory task to help fight against Putin. Now if we don't fight ourselves, we will support our guys that are doing the fighting. Yet they're not doing it. Russians not against Putin. Like they look at Putin and says like, well, he's doing a thing. Like he's doing the thing that we're not totally against, because Russians are full of shit. That's and like the way that you're explained to it, like you can ask a professor or whatever, they're probably gonna have some fucking theories about what they are. I don't give a shit what theories there are. I know Russians are full of shit. I know they're liars. I know if you squeeze a Russian strongly enough, the imperial juices are gonna start coming out. That's what I know. And how people explain it, I don't really care. Yeah. T-Post Homus, about St. Petersburg Economic Forum. Apparently a senator, I think Makarov, has given a rumor reality check. Everyone looked in the mirrors opposed to the speech. Western business never returning. Oh, yes. This is the part actually that I didn't say in the intro, because what I failed to remember and say in the intro, why the Putin's facade is collapsing, like you see, like I totally forgot the point of the video today, is that that Putin was the only fucking guy that was saying that Russia's strong and we are winning and dominating. Now, every single other person on that forum was like just, oh my God, we are so freaking screwed. Like, we are so utterly devastated. You don't believe me? I don't know. Look it up somewhere. This translated in Russia, whatever. Ask for links. Go on like Blue Sky. People are sharing it there. It's like every single guy that comes out and says like, well, we are pretty bad, you know, like we have exhausted our possibilities for the economy. We are looking down at recession. Our budget is just like 3 times. The oil prices are pretty shit right now. And actually, the fact that the war between Iran and Israel might be over is actually bad news for Putin, because the oil prices would go back down again. And it's like, it's really freaking terrible. And like, yes, because it is. And like the only Putin just kind of like la 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 waltz in there, sits in his chair, scratches his balls, and is like, Russia, the great empire, we will land our foot in the air, we will land our foot in the sea, we will land our foot whatever, it's Russia. And everyone's just kind of like, okay, grandpa, you go, girl. Yeah. Like the whole forum was absolute hilarity. Like it was literally like just one Putin that's like, yeah, we're doing great, guys. And everyone else is like, just, that was hilarious. Thor Velour, can Ukraine use new tools to avoid the Russian drone threats towards the... I wanted to say that... I would like to say that you wanted to say cities, because what you wrote is cisties. So I'm going to assume that you meant cities and not cisties. But it's a lot more funny. Thank you. Right. So can Ukraine use new tools? Ukraine is using new tools all the time. One of the big things you get the perspective on is like, if you go in Ukraine, is just how advanced everything is. Now, you don't need to go like super far. You can talk with people. They have people that are working in some sweatshop that is making drones, and that's like they're working and so on. It's a pretty cool, because like they have this diversified production in Ukraine everywhere. And like then at some point, like I would end up in some of these, and I'm gonna be very careful what I say here, as like some you end up in some of these fundraiser events or the promotional events of like what new technology Ukraine is presenting, and you're like, whoa, whoa, this is pretty insane. And then you like see them like in action and so on, because like Ukrainian technology is like very rugged, and they're like, okay, if we have this, like we need to use it tomorrow. Basically, we need to make that our technology this way, and it's really impressive. Like, so Ukraine is having new technology developed always. The problem is Russians are developing their technology as well. For example, let's say the same aviation bombs. Initial aviation bombs were simple. They were able to fly for about 15 to 20 kilometers, and they basically just had some wings, and that was about it. Then Russians kind of developed it because they were very imprecise. So Russians kind of adjusted it and put some sensors in them, and allowed them to have better wings. This allowed for these bombs to fly in like 20, 30, 40 kilometers far. And that was much better already, because the internal navigation, it was able to then go up if there was a proper effect and so on. It's a really good gliding technology, like very, very robust. But Ukrainians then, it's like, oh, if you have sensors, we're going to find a way to jam it. And it was pretty cool. Like at some point, Ukrainians were able to jam some of these aviation bombs. But then Russians was like, okay, let's put some really complex navigational sensors on our bombs. And like, I mean, they're not super complex in the execution, but they are more complex than just strapping a couple of wings on a big explosive, like a coyote, wild coyote style. No, now it has like a antenna that has ability to filter out some of the frequency noise and focus specifically on the navigational signals that are then directly sent to the aviation bombs, like by this like narrow signal line. It's hard to explain. Not an expert here, but that's how I got explained to it. So they also adapted. Now Ukrainians are looking to adapt together with the NATO countries to develop additional new technology, maybe some drone interceptors against these aviation bombs. So it's always like this balance. So Ukraine always works on something that they can do better to protect their cities, but Russians are developing their technology as well. So it's not only one way. Michael, okay, I got bored with the inject weed guy. I'm gonna time out here for a day. There we go. Chris Angel, oil prices are back down because the war in the Middle East seems to be dying down. Yes. Do you think if they stay down that this was a net loss for Russia, considering how much of Iran was destroyed? Oh, for sure, for sure. Like in a short term, terrible. You know what the Iranians said? You know the worst part is for Russia? The worst part is for Russia is that they're so shit. They're like, as soon as they were like, oh shit, we actually need to do something, Russians did nothing. Like in Iran, like in some of the Iranian media and some of the voices inside Iran, it's like, Russia is a shitty ally. Now, this monumentally like cracked the any kind of alliance that Russia had with Iran. Now, I don't expect them to crack fully. Like, I don't expect them to go separate ways. I think there's some benefits there. But like any kind of like a long-term like mutual cooperation agreements, oh fuck no. Like Iran finally gets attacked, and then Russia says like, we don't know who Iran is. We're not really interested in all of this. Oh look, it's a star. It's like, and Iran is like, that's not a star. That's a B-2 Spirit bomber. So yeah. That's like the fact that Russia did jack shit to help Iran really upset a lot of people in Iran. And yeah, the fact that oil prices will go down is definitely a net negative for Russia. Now, Putin obviously got some money on selling the expensive oil, but it was like a short brief. It's just a couple of weeks. Russia is in such a deep shit right now that that this short brief doesn't really help. They need like radical change. They need to stop the war, to be honest. Like they need the end of the war. Like Ukrainian war is completely unsustainable for Russia. Absolutely. Tadas Boitsovas, seen some of the news of Russian posturing intensify near the Baltics. Is it just the usual empty posturing, or should we worry as a Lithuanian Putin will do something really stupid? Yes, he might do something really stupid. We talked about this extensively, that right now, basically, Trump destroyed the NATO alliance, the fundamental principle of the NATO alliance, that if a country is attacked, then other countries will come to its aid. Putin sees it, and he will try doing more while Trump is in power. Though actually, to be honest, maybe after Iran, Putin might think twice. I think another benefit that we all gained is the fact that Trump actually got the balls to bomb Iran, arguing like about the consequences and what it will bring and so on. But certain things that it did bring, and like for example, for Putin to kind of treat Trump just a little bit more seriously, potentially it came because, again, Putin understands only strength. He's a dictator. All dictators are like that. He's like the main important part about Putin is that he's utterly unoriginal. Like literally everything that Putin does, if there would be like a book that someone says like, this is like the playbook dictator, and there's like, then you'll read the playbook and then you're like, oh my God, it's literally Putin. Despite the fact that that book might have been written by Gaddafi or Hussein or whoever, like dictator, because they're all the fucking same. Like all of them have like a big major steps that are like that are defining like what the dictator is. And for Putin, this is the same as well. He is very, very predictable. He's absolutely unoriginal, and there is like nothing special about him. That's the saddest part. That Russians are like dying for an absolute like the saddest dictator there is. Like at least could it have been like at least, I don't know, like fucking open gay that likes Brazilian parades, like, you know, something like, some dictators are like quirky like that. Remember Mussolini? Like Mussolini was a fun dictator to a sort. It's like at least like you look at him in history, it's like, oh my God, that guy was wacky, and you're like, yep, he was. And Putin is like, oh my God, like it's like, you know, the not even potato and meat. He's like just like a bland porridge of sorts, like just like All right, so read some super chats, by the way, guys. Thank you for support. Canada, thank you so much for making me a member for 22 months. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much. It's time to stand up to, or it's time to back down, and the answer is easy for me. We'll stand up and fight for what we know is right, ready as we'll ever be. A little song heard once, but seems valid for what's going on. Absolutely. I need to throw it in the eye to make it a song. Team Conrady, thank you so much for being brother in arms. Yes, guys, remember, like, I'm not a big chaser for a lot of subscriptions, fun funding, despite the fact that this is my job. But as always on this channel, I would always, if you like this content, if you like what I do, instead of just sending me some kind of donos and so on, first and foremost, go to any fundraiser. Like we just closed our fundraiser, but go to any fundraiser that is open, either with NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade or Razum for Ukraine or Car for Ukraine, whatever you feel like, and just donate that money. Says like, I like Georgie, I'm gonna go donate to a good cause. Please do that. Obviously, if you have extra income, I will definitely take your money to get myself a coffee or something. But I really appreciate the help, but most importantly, I appreciate the support for Ukraine that you guys giving. Thank you so much. Will Ukraine be able to forgive Russia in time? If certain changes happens, yes. Ooh, a lot more questions came out. That's cool. Michael says, reading the news seems like more and more new contracts are being signed between Ukraine and European allies for weapons production. Yep. Still, these contracts, unfortunately, are in hundreds of thousands of euros. I would like to see contracts in hundreds of millions. Like that's the saddest part. That's the saddest part. But I am very glad that there is a proactivity on signing the contracts. Kaimo, you know I support Ukraine, but I have to ask, can't Ukraine blame itself for not knowing where it wants to belong for almost 40 years, whether to Russia or to Europe? Oh no, Kaimo, that's the totally valid point to make, Kaimo. It's like, I totally agree. Like I actually say it to my Ukrainian friends that whenever they, for example, Ukrainians are complaining about, like, like Europe is not doing enough and so on. It's like, where were you for the last 30 years? You had like fuck all. Like your army was the shit. The problem is that they know that. It's just they don't like this being pointed out to them. But I talk to them honestly. And I talk to them honestly saying it's like that long term, it's not going to be Europe that's going to be protecting you, like NATO, whatever. First and foremost, you need to fucking protect yourself. If you have an aggressive neighbor, you need to be ready for that aggressive neighbor. Yet it wasn't happening. And like since 2014, again, Ukrainians were not ready. So there is plenty of bones to throw into the Ukrainian garden. And I agree with you completely that for 40 years they were fucking around and doing jack shit and so on. But with that said, that zero excuse for what Russia is doing right now. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, even if Ukraine would be the most corrupt country, which is not, by the way, in Europe, Ukraine has gotten in their corruption level corruption fighting level, sorry, much higher, even over the war. And beyond that, Russia is now the most corrupt country and has been the most corrupt country for eternity. The Europeans are not as non-corrupt as they would like to say. It's just they are really good at hiding it somewhere on the offshores. And then the only way they get discovered when the massive leaks like Panama Papers are suddenly leaked, and it's like, oh shit, all of our leaders are suddenly corrupt. What? How did this happen? Yeah, and everyone is like on a high horse, like supposedly they're not corrupt or something. None of that in a second. Or even like if there would be Nazis, like they're not Nazis in Ukraine. We talked about this, like there is no Nazi party in Ukrainian parliament right now, period. Not a single seat, by the way. Like far right, not a single far right party representative in Ukrainian parliament right now. But the point is, the matter is, even if there would be, that wouldn't matter, because nothing gives an excuse for Putin to come in and kill women and children, to make torture camp, to create ethnocide, to now remove Ukrainian language from the schools on the occupied territories. Zero. They have zero right to do this. So it doesn't matter who Ukraine is or like that, what they have been doing and how they are, and they're not perfect. And some of they don't want to fight, some of they want to escape the war, and so on. All of that does not matter, because what matters is the point that what Russia is doing is fucking genocide, and that is absolutely unforgivable, despite the fact that Ukraine was not ready. All of these is true. So for me, that is why Ukraine matters. Like, not because Ukraine is the bestest and the awesomest country and the most pure and godly and so on. They absolutely fucking not. There's so many issues in Ukrainians, and I would be glad taking them apart after the war is over and so on. But right now, just for the sake of everything that is for human values, like the most black and white conflict in the history of mankind is now basically happening before our eyes. And I for sure know on which side I'm on. So, valid point. Good. Killendan, speaking of nukes as deterrence, do you think Ukraine is secretly developing nukes with its plutonium? They might, but you must understand that nukes will not help Ukraine. So to develop nukes, you need to dedicate a lot of resources. And Ukraine is very, very short on resources. Having nukes right now will not help Ukraine. Like, just stop for a second, let's think. So Ukraine gets nukes. What then? Russia stops? Of course they will not stop. No, but now Russia will have premise and saying, aha, we're not fighting a non-nuclear country anymore. We're fighting a nuclear country anymore. And then they said, like, look at Israel and US. They realized the threat of nukes from Iran, and they decided to take out those nukes. Now the goal of Russia will be to take out nukes of Ukraine. And it's like, it's absolute bullshit, obviously. You understand it, I understand it. But it's definitely going to be played like this. Like, you don't need to be like a space scientist here. Like, you don't need to be the Deneal Tyson or something. The point of the matter is that nukes do not bring the benefit once the war has already started. Nukes are a great stopper, though not even always. Like for example, the conflict between India and Pakistan already showed that even the nuclear powers might decide to duke it out. We were lucky that they ended it quickly, but still. The fact of the matter is that nukes is a preventative measure. So when the war is already happening, it doesn't bring a great benefit. There is a lot of more resources. And you can say, it's like, well, but what if like Russia will kind of advance and Ukraine will be put up to the wall, and then there will be like, no other option, and then Ukraine will be on the basically borderline survival. Well, potentially, but the point of what I started the show with is that Ukraine is not there. Russia is barely advancing. Now, I know Russia claims that they are winning bigly, but they're not. They're absolutely not. We did a calculation. I did a thread right now, right? So if you take from where Russia is now, and I'm actually going to transition back to our little drawing session here. So if you take from where Russia is right now, right, this red one, right? So if we, let's say, assume that, well, the goal of Russia might not be capturing Ukraine at this moment altogether, but let's say Russia wants to capture Kyiv and everything that is to the east of Kyiv, like so this territory, or to the east of Dnipro. So there is this big river that basically separates Ukraine in kind of two. It's Dnipro, and it goes something like this. This is the river Dnipro. So if we say Kyiv is over here, right over there, and then we say like, okay, Russia, it wants to capture these eastern provinces, and they want to capture Kyiv, and then this is like a major, like that's probably Russia can declare a victory. Good job, perfect. Well, if we take the current rate at which Russia is advancing, and the preface that I need to make here, because people, there was some article somewhere on the analysis stating that Russia is advancing something like 20 kilometers per day. That's an M. So 20 kilometers, square kilometers, 20 square kilometers per day that Russia is capturing. And then they say it's a pace, it's a good pace. Well, if we are to accept that this is going to be the pace, the high pace that Russia is advancing, which is not, because right now Russia is on the offensive. We know that usually Russia advances and then it takes like 2-3 months to kind of breathe out. So that's already the tempo that it's not going to be there. But let's take this high tempo and let's take it linearly. Without looking, for example, at the fact that Russia is struggling every time it hits like some kind of a major settlement. Like Bakhmut was a big issue for Russia. Toretsk was a huge issue, not captured yet, by the way, despite being like over 9 months. Chasiv Yar, not captured yet, despite being over, I believe, 12 months now, still there. So despite the fact that Russia is struggling with these cities, let's say linearly, Russia will advance 20 kilometers per day from now on. Well, it's going to take Russia to capture this eastern part and reach Kyiv. Not take Kyiv, reach the outskirts of Kyiv. It will take Russia 16.46 years. I even remembered the total number. 16.46 years. A decade and a half for Russia to reach Kyiv at the current fast tempo. And we're not even talking about the skyrocketing losses. That majority of these advances that Russia did were with the vehicles, that Ukrainians were utterly unprepared and stuff like this. The point of the matter is that this is not victory. This is a lot of things. Victory it is not. Drawing. Yes. All right. Georgie's thoughts on evacuation news about the Suvalki Gap. It's a hoax. There was no evacuation. It's fine. I'm not from the neighborhood. Suvalki Gap is between Lithuania and Poland. Look, I can show you where I'm from. Let's go back to map. I'll show you where I'm from. Let's move it this way. So this is the map of Baltics. This is the capital of Latvia, Riga. This is me. This is where I'm from. And this one here is the Suvalki Gap. This little shit right over here. So whoop. So from Riga to Suvalki Gap is about 300 kilometers. I mean, some people might consider that it's close. I come from a small country, so for me, 300 kilometers is a lot. 300 kilometers for me is, that's about 3/4 of crossing my country lengthwise. So it's like, it's almost like crossing my whole country that I'm from. So Suvalki Gap, firstly, hoax news. There was no massive evacuation. Some people moved out, some people moved in. It was an absolute send out. Lithuanians were just like ridiculing it and laughing very, 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 very much about it. Secondly, Suvalki Gap is a known weakness. Like the thing that you must understand, that whenever there is some kind of a war game and there is like, okay, Russia is going to attack us. Where is Russia going to attack? First answer, Suvalki Gap. Now, I know our military might not come out as fully competent. Like they're a bit behind the war and so on, but they're not. Like I've talked with the military personnel, and there is a lot of issues with the military, the long bureaucracy, the weird functions, the non-doing shit people in the military. So like that they're like, I don't know, like aviation force, like with no planes or stuff like that, you know, like things like that. There's a lot of issues about the military that I can say, but they do understand Suvalki Gap. They have been working and wargaming this area insanely. So for Russia to go into Suvalki Gap would be a nightmare. So that scenario, I would actually be considering to write off, because as far as I understand, the response scenario that our military came up with is like, if there is a threat to Suvalki Gap, we just need to collapse Kaliningrad immediately. Like that is basically the response. So the way to neutralize Suvalki Gap is to remove the gap, because there is like right now no defense in Kaliningrad. Right now in Kaliningrad, that region of Russia, that supposedly Suvalki Gap, I'm going to transition because some people might not understand. So that red shit, that's Russians. There is very little armed forces of Russians in there. And Russia cannot really get there in any proper way. So they can get by the sea somehow. They can fly with the planes, but there's like no land connection. So the goal is basically, if there is any threat to Suvalki Gap, then just come in, take it all. That's the response to Suvalki Gap. The question is like whether or not and when these plans will or will not be executed, whether there will be political will. I do believe that in Baltics and Poland, there will be a political will to respond with force. So that thing, I think we can sort of believe. That's why I'm kind of like Suvalki Gap. I don't think this is the way that Russia is going to act. I think Russia is going to more focus on like what is called by hybrid warfare. By the way, not hybrid warfare, still fucking warfare. In Russian doctrine, Russia does not distinguish between a hybrid warfare and a non-hybrid warfare. It is all part of the warfare, just different types of warfare, not a hybrid warfare. It's just hybrid warfare is just a very nice way how we in the West decided to term aggression against our countries so we can do jack shit about it. Is Bliss, I saw data indicating Russia issued new bonds. Can you break down how this relates to Russia failing budget? Yes, so Russia is issuing bonds that they are selling. The issue being that Russia right now is selling bonds with 15%. 15% is kind of a break point. So basically, when Russia sells the bonds at around 15%, that's about when they approximately balance out of what they need to make in payments for the previous bonds. So they would need to start issuing bonds with lower return rate because 15% does not generate any additional money for Russians, so to say. So right now, Russia is selling with 15%. It's not generating any money. It's not generating a loss when it was like with 16%, when Russia was selling bonds, but it was paying more to the previous bondholders, so to say. Who would buy those bonds? Oh, there is a whole scheme, Tipos Homus. So the scheme goes about like this. So Russia prints money. Well, they don't print it, but like, well, Russia prints money. Then they lend that money to banks, and then the banks use that money to buy bonds from Russia. So I'm simplifying it a lot. It's a little bit more complex, but that's pretty much the scheme that Russia right now is running. So it prints money gives it to banks, and then banks use that money to buy bonds from Russia. Success story of the economy, my friends. Joe the Dude, are others fed up of clickbait headlines from some channels? Not yours, Georgie. Slava Ukraini. I mean, listen, this is a YouTube, right? So everyone plays their game. It's the same like people asking me like, well, Georgie, are you not like fed up with like people making money? I think like if people doing honest work, then they're doing it fine. It's like, you don't like the clickbait titles? Well, don't click. It's like, it's part of the YouTube game. Like, people respond to things that people respond. If people make a title and then they appeal, then it makes people click. Hey, maybe that's what the channel wants. That's what the channel needs. It's that's what it is. It's all like it's part of the job, so to say. So maybe it's because like I'm now a YouTuber, I understand a little bit more. Obviously, clickbait is not as good, but in general, sure. It's frustrating, I know. I'm just saying, this is the media environment we live in. If there would be a better way, I would be much glad, like for example, my titles to not be like, oh my god, fake bravado, Russian cascade collapse. It's like I would rather say is like it is saying is like, well, Putin is full of shit and he presented his arguments wrong. I would love to be more like intellectual like this, but that's not working. What works is like simple statements, is like Putin destroyed or something like this, stuff like that. David Sunday, UGVS, where are we at in Ukraine? I don't understand. What is this question? Okay. Bombi1138, will Ukraine be able to forgive Russia? Okay, I think I read this before. No, unless something changes. Thomas H, what do you think about the latest signals around Belarus? Is Lukashenko on his way to leave Russia behind, or is it just a show? Well, Lukashenko, like, if you don't know Lukashenko, he's an actual politician. Like, I know it sounds weird. We talked about dictators. I would say Lukashenko is probably one of the more savvier dictators of the current timeline that we're in. Lukashenko is actually like it's sort of like almost demands respect. Now he's a killer and a torturer. Now he like, if you didn't know about Lukashenko, there's like plenty of stories like when he was challenged for power when he was early in his years. So he just hired like goons that would kidnap his political opponents, and then these political opponents would be found like in ditches, like sliced up into pieces. So that's kind of the legacy of Lukashenko, where he came to power. And then when there was protests, like he would lock up people into prisons, and people would come to these prisons. No one would let them in, but you would hear people being tortured because they're yelling like there is no, no tomorrow. Basically, people like they're being killed in prisons and tortured and mutilated. That's the legacy of Lukashenko. And but with setting all of that, I don't want to play him like a good guy. He has been extremely successful as a politician. He really understands political nuance, how to flow through the streams, how to present himself, how to butter up the people that he needs, and so on. He's not like a KGB agent like Putin is. Putin is acting like a proper KGB agent. Lukashenko is just a very savvy politician that is also a bloody dictator. So Lukashenko coming in, like finding a ways to talk with the United States, opening himself up for Europe, trying to butter up and says like, hey, maybe I'm going to leave Putin. What will you give me? That is just like what he does. It's a game. Is Russia producing Shaheeds now without Iran's help, or Iran is still providing some parts know-how? There were certain parts that Iran is still providing. Like, I don't remember which parts it was specifically, but they do. But Russia is producing Shaheeds on their own. They are producing these Shaheeds in the Alabuga factory in Tatarstan. It's a huge factory, basically the size of the city. And that factory, they are doing a very interesting thing, because they're positioning that factory like it's a university factory, like it's a ability for people to come in, study, and get work relevant to their studies. So they're advertising this factory to the students all across the world. And then students come to this university to study and get a job at these factories. And then Russia is basically forced laboring these students to create to create these death machines that it's sending to Ukraine. They've now completing the rail line to that factory directly from China, so they can deliver the components straight from China on the trains to that factory. So yes, Russia is producing their own Shaheeds. David Sunday, extend on why and for what show it is important for Russia to keep the image alive. That's in the end they will. Well, that's how their dictatorship works. It's like, why does Trump says that he won the election? So it's a modus operandi of dictators, like liars. Except for Russia, it's the whole country. Though for US, it's also kind of like becoming. Like, have you heard the RFK Jr.? There you go. Hey there, why has Russia not used Novichok in Ukraine yet? They happy used it in UK, right? So Novichok is a very specific specific substance that has very specific applications. Like, they are at full-scale war with Ukraine. Novichok requires a certain setup. Russian agencies are not as prevalent and dominant in Ukraine. You're talking about this like Russia just has like agents all over Ukraine. They don't. Majority of Russian quote-unquote agents is just regular people that just either sympathetic to Russia or just want some money in Ukraine. And then Russia is hiring them to do their dirty work. For example, create a bomb and then deliver that bomb to a specific location. Or, for example, we saw with the attempted assassination of this blogger, Sergei Sternenko, it was just some random woman that was just tasked to just wait for him near the entrance to his house and then make a shot. She didn't even shoot properly. She didn't even know how to hold a gun normally. So that's why it was like so unsuccessful. There is no like this ultra secret, highly specialized Russian massive KGB mafia agents, boys, triple O, Moscow 7, whatever. Russia is not like that. They are working. They're a lot more basic. Can you explain the state of the Russian economy? It's a long concept. I did a video recently. Maybe some of the people can link it in chat. I talked extensively about Russian economy just recently. But Russian economy, like, okay, very short. Russian economy is in a big budget deficit. So next year, so we were expecting that 2025, Russia will kind of still equalize their balance. And then 2026, their balance will just go to shit. And then to kind of balance it out, Russia would need to start cutting into things that actually hurt, because they were having a lot of the money beforehand that they just kind of like, all of the growth for Russia was, I took money from one pocket and then I put money into another pocket. And then all of the Western media reports it like a massive Russian growth of economy, which is not. Russia just takes from their piggy bank and puts them in the pocket, saying, it's like, look, I earned so much money, which is like, you didn't. You always had that money, you just didn't use it. But it doesn't matter. What does matter is that now that piggy bank is empty and Russian economy will need to actually feel the pain. So this is the first year where Russia is going to struggle equalizing their effects. Russian business and population will feel certain pain in 2025, but more importantly, in 2026, that's going to be really, really painful for Russians finally, regular Russians. So the main question is like, will Russia go into forced labor or not? Food stamps and forced labor. Russia is right now on the pathway to forced labor and food stamps. Countrywide. What's the most likely way you see the war ending? Russia collapsing. Elha, Fed Orange in prompting U.S. Chamber of Commerce to meet with Russian leaders daily. Yes, I saw that news, and that's very unfortunate. But as I explained many times, all of that is fluff. Russia needs a lot more. Like a lot more. The war is just like, it's such a massive hog for Russia. Insane hog of Russian economy and money and everything. Just the war itself existing, none of these trade commerce businesses is even close at solving any issues for Russia on normal scale. The scale is just over the top here. So it's not nice that there is like, it's more tells about ourselves rather than actually solves Russians' problems. For example, let's put it this way. Russia talks about massive investments and some kind of work with their natural resources. Well, have you wondered why these natural resources are still there in Russia? And the answer is very simple, because it's not economically feasible to get those resources. A lot of these resources are like in almost permafrost areas. They are deep in Siberia, where like you don't have train lines, you don't have Russian roads. Like, let me put you, like, I'll put you in perspective. Russian, let's put Russian road Siberia. Yeah, this is a great demonstration. Yeah, pretty much. Like this is a whole demonstration here. So look, I know it's above my head, but like just look at there. So this is the state of like Russian roads in Siberia. Like you can see, like that's the Russian roads of Siberia. So when Putin says like, oh, we need to develop these resources that are like deep in Russia, like this is what they need to solve. Like you need to solve this before you can start solving any resources. How do you get equipment there? How do you start getting any logistics there? Like this is the state of Russia in depth of Siberia. Like, how do you get, like, look at this shit. I know we like to evaluate Russia by looking at pretty pictures from Moscow, but that's not real Russia, not even close. This is more like real Russia. It's like when they say, like, oh, whoa, there is going to be like a big resources. Like, yeah, on these roads, good luck. Mm-hmm. How are you, Georgie? I'm good, thanks. David Sunday, how much image symbolism to keep power over the countries could... Wait, what? How much image symbolism to keep power over other countries could be, in Putin's view, on the Ukrainian war? Is he staying stubborn to keep an impression over the countries alive? Maybe? I don't know. Romeo Francisco, what do you think about the fact Putin, the pile of dunk, told Iran to go ask China for some help? A signal of weakness much? Oh, I already talked about this, yeah. Is Belarus still a reliable ally for Russia? Yeah. It's not an ally. Belarus is a subject of Russia. Let's be very clear. Does the release of Tikhanovsky mean anything? No, it doesn't. Ricky Langolis says North Korea, question mark. Yeah, best Korea, question mark. Tadas Boitsovas, how advanced do you think Ukraine will be militarily in the end of this war? Pretty advanced. David Sunday, but okay, so there is nuance. There is nuance on how advanced Ukraine can be. I've explained this in person, but I think I've never kind of talked about this. So I'm getting a little bit more into how Ukraine operates on their development cycles and so on. And what you need to understand about Ukraine is a lot of Ukrainian innovation is driven by necessity and need. And more specifically, a lot of their programs are financed by how would I put it? They're financed by, you know, like how cost efficient they are. And a lot of them are selecting like the cheap options over more expensive ones, despite the fact that more expensive might have gotten them further. For example, in Ukraine, there is a huge innovation sector, but I did some inquiries about what's the amount of funds available to that information sector. And I cannot talk about it because Russians never talked about this, so I that would be like spreading information that I shouldn't be spreading. But let's just say it's not a lot of money. Like this community has contributed a lot more than a lot of the Ukrainian sectors are fighting for. So the financing within Ukraine is very, very skewed toward bang for buck solutions. And bang for buck solutions are good, really good. But are they like groundbreaking, you know, stuff that can really, really turn the world around? That is questionable. I think there is still a window of opportunity for something that is a bit more financed to get ahead from the Europeans, for example. Bang for Bing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Most of Russians are so poor and they have no choice to fight because of oligarchy. I think you're excusing Russians. We started the show talking about that it doesn't matter how you are financially. It's like matters like what you do. And I'm sorry, but like Russians don't do a lot good, despite the fact that they are maybe not so wealthy. Thomas H., from what I can see, the understanding on Russia and the support for Ukraine is mainly from the GF countries. Could it be possible to make a coalition with Ukraine and them instead of NATO membership? Oh, NATO is dead, Thomas. Like, NATO is gone. It's now pure coalition of the willing. NATO still is going to stay and present itself like a relevant thing because they will use NATO mechanisms to like transition weapons, knowledge, cooperation, and so on. So you just don't want to build another new system, right? You know, like if you have a working tool, you can still use that tool despite the fact that warranty of it already run out and stuff like that. And last question for today, guys. Not Happening asks, do you reckon there is any chance of getting the less Ukraine-friendly EU states to depart the Ukrainian refugees back to Ukraine? It could help with the lack of manpower and god awful demographics. What an awful way to say. Not happening. Phooey, disgusting. What a disgusting, wow, what a disgusting statement. You do recognize that majority of refugees are women and children. And you're like, what you're saying is you want women and children to be actively deported to a war zone. You're fucking insane. Jesus Christ, look in the mirror, fella. Fuck. Okay, just the last one. Gonna read a super chat. Thank you so much, Blaze Newmans, for £2. Appreciate it. Thanks, mods, community, and host. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. Thank you so much for participating in this small little stream. Great job on doing the fundraiser. Appreciate it, everyone. And remember, the fact that you're here, the fact that you're spreading the message, the fact that you're sending messages to your direct representatives saying them that we should continue supporting Ukraine, all of that matters. And Ukraine matters. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you next time.